A massive winter storm is expected to move through the United States, creating heavy snowfall and up to an inch of freezing rain at times. This could result to widespread power outages and hazardous travel conditions for the Martin Luther King Jr. weekend. All this will be discussed later on in the video, so please be sure to stay tuned. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Nate. I also go by HockeyBoy8. It is January 13th, 2022. Of course, you guys know that behind the scenes, I am very busy with my secondary job, but of course, once we get out of winter and into the spring and severe weather events, then you know I'm always active on here. But during the winter, I always work at my ski resort that I am a part of as well, so that's the reason why activity on this channel is quite limited. But you guys know that whenever there's life-threatening weather around, I always upload some sort of video, and in this case, we do have that. So first things first, please be sure to subscribe if you are new to stay up to date with all the latest information that I do provide. So if you get a notification from me, it's more than likely because I'm informing you all on some form of life-threatening weather. Also, please be sure to like the video so that this can get out onto YouTube's algorithm so that we can get it out to as many people as possible, essentially helping me spread the information. And let's get straight into the video with the satellite imagery here. You can see the general flow of the clouds here from the infrared satellite. And you can see for the most part that we have clouds up here in the upper Midwest into the northern plains, moving south and east into the southeastern portions of the United States, and then curling off towards the north and east, heading off towards, guess who, the northeastern portions of the United States. And that is more than likely because we have this huge trough, this huge dip in the jet stream that's kind of moving about, with another low pressure system that is just off the coast of the United States in the Atlantic Ocean, and that's creating some storms for Bermuda and stuff like that. I know I have some viewers over there in Bermuda, so hello to you guys who are over there. But this isn't really going to be the threat that's going to create our snow. What's actually going to create our snow here is two low pressure systems that are going to kind of merge, and we already have one of them that we can see here on satellite imagery over here in the northwestern portions of the United States. This is definitely something that I'm going to want to continue to watch as this moves on through, and you can tell this is a low pressure system here because we also have another jet stream that's kind of merging with this other one right within here, and you can kind of see how this kind of dips just like this, and that usually means that there's a low pressure system sitting somewhere right within there. You can see some form of counterclockwise swirl in here with these lower level clouds. So we definitely have something starting over there, and then there's going to be this new low pressure system that's off into portions of Canada that we cannot see at this time, but we will be able to if we take a look at the weather models, which we'll show you on in a bit. But for right now, let's take a look at the simulated radar here. And here's that simulated radar here for you all. We're going to be using the North American model, or the NAM 3 kilometer, for the beginning of this presentation, but then as this moves on through later and later on, and as we go further and further out ahead of us, we're going to be shifting over towards the Euro model, mainly because the North American model does not go out that far, whereas the Euro actually does. So just pay attention for the time right above me. All right, the time is right there above my head. It is in Eastern Standard Time, so if you're in Central, I apologize. You're just going to have to adjust and subtract 1 hour from that in order to basically get an idea as to when you guys could be impacted by these storms. So let's take a look at this. All right, the North American model here says that from Thursday into Friday here, snow is beginning to start to surge on through into portions of North Dakota and into South Dakota. Of course, if you are in portions of Saskatchewan and Manitoba, you guys could get some stuff too, specifically near the Regina areas. That's where you guys could more than likely get your activity, but you guys can't see that on the actual board here because the model run that we're looking at doesn't exactly like it when we go up to Canada. So I apologize for my Canadian friends, but just know that if you're over there along the Manitoba-Saskatchewan border, you guys are most likely going to get snow. But then as this moves on through, you can see that the snow and freezing rain start to move further towards the south and east. Of course, the freezing rain also starts to deteriorate and becomes primarily a snow event as you get further and further along from Friday morning into Friday afternoon. And then this is expected to continue to move on through in places like Oklahoma, Arkansas, as well as even the portions of maybe northern Texas could potentially see a flurry or two as the storm moves about. You can see that this is also starting to form a bit of a warm front out in front on the leading edge, kind of along the border of Kentucky and Tennessee, and then a bit of a cold front and or dry line on the lagging end of this event as well. And don't be surprised if areas here along the coastline of Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida actually get some severe weather from this. There's not a whole lot that goes into this for it to be super significant, but you guys could potentially get some severe weather from this. Maybe a 1 out of 5 in the severe weather scale definitely is possible with that. But the big thing here as to why I called out for this warm front and this cold front is because this could play into a major factor as to what happens along the East Coast as well. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But the big thing here to take away from this is that there is a band of snow that is expected to surge on through, and it is expected to increase in accumulation as it heads further on towards the south and east in places near the Ohio and Mississippi River Delta, heading off and towards areas that were impacted in December by the tornadic events, could potentially see an upwards of a foot to maybe even a foot and a half of snow. That in itself is pretty crazy, especially since they've been going through all sorts of activity over there, and because of that, people need to watch out for this activity as this moves on through from Sunday into Monday. Now, right where we left off, as this moves on through from Saturday into Sunday, you can see how you have this massive boundary that begins to develop, this cold front and or dry line with your warm front right here, your snow over here with your cold dry air that's seeping in behind this low pressure system, which is the reason why there's snow over there compared to over here where there's a lot of rain, because there's a lot of Gulf moisture, the warm Gulf moisture, which is going to continue to play a factor here as this continues to move about. And let's see how this plays out here as this moves on through into the mid stages of Sunday into Monday. You can see how a big low pressure system really starts to kind of get its act together. And we have some areas here that gets a lot of rain. You can see the massive boundary that begins to develop there. You also have some areas that can get some freezing rain from Virginia all the way down towards the Carolinas and even Georgia. And then some other areas here that can get some sleet and big time snow that'll move on through. And you can actually see that as this moves off towards the north and east, there could be the potential for some lake effect snow somewhere over here along Lake Ontario into Lake Erie. Specifically, I would say from areas near Erie all the way up to Buffalo towards Rochester and even close enough towards Syracuse to where you guys could get some heavier amounts of snow within your general vicinity. And that definitely should be something to watch out for. But the other thing here too is that notice how there is a lot of this general area here along this line of green and blue, to where the green is rain and the blue is snow. And the reason why I want you guys to watch is I believe personally that a lot of this moisture that's over here in towards portions of the Atlantic Ocean could potentially create a lot warmer conditions for areas along that line, meaning that areas further inland that could potentially be blue instead of this green here along this line could potentially turn green and could potentially turn into either sleet, freezing rain, or just regular full-on rain. So just be aware of that. If you don't get snow, don't be too bummed out, because that's more than likely what could happen here, especially since most often than not, models tend to be a lot colder than it actually is, and that could definitely be the case here with this instance. And the one thing that I mainly want to talk about here to emphasize is when the freezing rain will officially start. And the thought process here from the Euro model is that it will most likely start sometime around midnight from Saturday and Sunday, heading off and towards the mid stages and latter stages of Sunday. Watch what happens here. You can see that in the early morning hours of Sunday, you can start to see a little bit of that pink. You can start to see that that pink starts to increase more and more, and you can see this massive blob of pink that extends across portions of the Carolinas down towards Georgia and all the way up into the Appalachian Mountains, and that will be the case there. This is when it's going to be at its peak. This is when it could create some very hazardous travel as well as widespread power outages, which will most likely occur into these general vicinities. So I highly recommend that you guys be prepared if you can. Get some salt, get some food, get some water, and get some way to where you can stay warm, because if you guys do have a power outage within your general vicinity, these temperatures over here could potentially be around freezing. And that is definitely not a good recipe for people who want to stay safe. So be aware of that as this transitions from Sunday morning into Sunday afternoon. All right, so now we are going to take a look a little bit more in depth as to what exactly is happening with the atmosphere so that we can kind of understand as to what we're dealing with. So we're going to be taking a look at the 500 millibar wind shear, which is about 6 kilometers above ground level. And we're going to take a look at this here by kind of comparing as to what's happening right now. So we have our low pressure system that's over here in the northwest. That's a check. We also have our developing low pressure system, which is over into the Atlantic. That's a check. We also have some significant wind shear that is pushing on through into central portions of the United States. That looks very similar. So I would have to say that this model run is representing what is currently happening right now relatively accurately. As this pushes from Thursday into Friday, you can see that we have some significant wind shear that is moving due south here. Big thing here is that it's moving due south, making this low pressure system move further south, as well as this new low pressure system which comes from portions of Canada all the way down, and it will start to merge. It will literally combine here as soon as it gets into portions of Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Texas. So watch here. Watch how this continues to merge, and boom, it is already there. Now, one thing I want to point out to you guys here is that once we're in this position, a couple of things must be considered. I want you guys to look up here at this dip in the jet stream up here. This is another low pressure system that's up towards Nova Scotia and extreme northeastern portions of New England. What this has done is this has created a long wave trough that has moved all the way through and elongated itself all the way into portions of the Ozarks and into Kansas. And you can actually see that by this little angle here within these black lines. If you ever see that, just know that you have a bit of a trough in there, and you can actually see that trough right within there with that little weaker portion of wind shear. And what that is going to do is that is going to force this low pressure system to eject through into portions of the mid-Atlantic and to the northeast and basically shoot off into portions of Quebec. So watch here what happens. As this moves on through, it is going to follow that pattern of that trough and then boom, shoot off all the way through. We're going to be taking a look at the 700 millibar relative humidity, which is looking 3 kilometers above ground level. And the big thing here to remember is that humidity is basically when the dew point and the temperature is the same. So the greater displacement between the two, the lower the humidity. Now, as this progresses from Friday into Saturday, I want you guys to pay attention to this low pressure system over here on the left-hand part of your screen. You can see that you have this big cold front and or dry line that begins to develop, but look at this massive band here that basically flows on through into the warm sector. This is what we call a warm sector here. Anything below this warm front here is technically called the warm sector. And this is the thing that I want you guys to watch out for, because we have a lot of warm moisture that is seeping into this general vicinity, creating some really interesting conditions that could either A, create freezing rain, or B, create a lot of rain. So if you were to ask me as to whether or not we have a lot of moisture with this system, I mean, I think it's pretty self-explanatory to see here. We have quite a bit of moisture here within this one band. And then as this moisture content continues to move on further and further north, you can see that that will continue to surge on through into portions of New England as well. So as I said, moisture is not really going to be an issue here. The question is how warm that moisture is actually going to be. All right, so you guys might be wondering, why am I showing you the sea surface temperature anomaly for the Atlantic Ocean? And the big reason for that is because when the waters evaporate, usually the temperatures from the water kind of resonate a little bit above that too, a little bit higher in the atmosphere. So in this instance, I want to show you guys the fact that the Atlantic Ocean is pretty warm. It's actually warmer than average by this time of year. I mean, look at this. We got a lot of these reds and these oranges that are indicating about 2 to even 3 degrees above average for sea surface temperature. And this is in Celsius, by the way, not in Fahrenheit. So that's a good 6 to 8 degrees above normal for Fahrenheit. And that's something to consider as this moves on through. So now the big thing here to look at when I talk about that evaporation is where are the areas to where the temperature is below freezing? And luckily we have a good indicator of that. So anywhere that is in the white or further lower into the green, if you guys know what I mean there, then that is below freezing level in Celsius. So I want you guys to pay attention to that for the most part. And you can see how there is a pocket here of this general warm air that is trying to seep into areas of the Carolinas and even along the coastline as well. So that's kind of that warm moisture in that warm sector that I was talking about that's trying to seep its way through. But in other areas here where there is that cold air, that is where you could potentially see your freezing precipitation. So I'm going to circle that right there. And as we transition from the 700 millibar temperatures, which is 3 kilometers above ground level, to the 850 millibar temperatures, which is 1 kilometer above ground level, you can see the big difference here between the whites before and after, and how you can see some areas that start to get into the purples as well. So let's circle that here. You can clearly see that some of these areas here within some of these kind of salmonish type purples and even reds here that could indicate that there could be some below freezing temperatures, which could basically mean that if there is any precipitation that forms that's in that yellow area that is below freezing, it's going to start out as snow, and then once it gets above freezing, it's going to turn back into rain. So as we go from the 850 millibar temperature, which is about 1 kilometer above ground level, to the ground temperatures here, which is 2 meters above ground level for any of you who are curious, you can clearly see that once again, there are some areas that start to go back into freezing. I'm going to outline that here in pink, and all the areas here that go from yellow and overlap to blue and overlap to this pink area all the way over here. This is where you guys can get some freezing rain and even snow. And this is where you guys need to watch out for the most, in my honest opinion, especially areas in the heart of all this. So somewhere over here, I would say specifically from Greer all the way up towards Charlotte, maybe even into Raleigh in some areas, you guys need to watch out for quite a lot of freezing rain that could potentially be right within your area. So just one of those things to where it's a nice little tidbit that I like to use to try and predict where freezing rain could potentially be. And I'm thinking from Greer all the way up to Charlotte, North Carolina, and even places along the Appalachians. That is where you guys could see some freezing rain. And that is where there could be some widespread power outages and hazardous travel. And specifically for any of you who are curious as to how much freezing rain you guys could get, I mean, this just speaks for itself. The maximum, which is right here, right next to me, it tells you at maximum, you guys could get over an inch of freezing rain. That is significant right there. Widespread power outages could occur with that high amount of freezing rain. So you guys really need to watch out for that, especially if you're in portions of northern South Carolina, central North Carolina, as well as southern Virginia. Definitely something to monitor with that. Sleet could also potentially be an issue here. Some areas could get in upwards of an inch of sleet as well, so don't think that this will not be a threat within this event, because it definitely could. And last but not least, the snow, into which there actually could be a plethora of it. A couple things that I actually want to talk about here, just to go a little bit in depth. So I'll show you the snowfall map right here, and then I want to show you something that is over here. This right here tells you the probability of seeing greater than 1 inch snowfall amounts within your area. And you can see that for the most part, there's a lot of areas that are in this red, which is about 100% chance to which you can see some snow. But one area that I want to show you otherwise here is the probability of people getting greater than 6 inches within your area. And you can see here from Sunday into Monday that totals start to increase, especially as you get into the higher elevations as this moves on through, to where some people could get potentially over 6 inches of rain within a 24-hour period. So definitely something to watch out for if you live within those areas, especially if you are in the higher probabilities according to the Euro model. So definitely something to watch out for. So I want to talk about this here real quickly. First off, lake effect snow will definitely be an issue for people along the lakes of Ontario and Erie. Specifically, the further east you can go, the higher the amounts you could potentially get. So do not be surprised if you actually get higher amounts of snowfall over there. there. Maybe even an upwards of 2 feet could potentially be an issue over there. Some other things that I want to point out here, there seems to be this band of snow that continues to stay put here according to the models. So from the Appalachians all the way further into the Adirondacks, specifically in the southern portions of the Adirondacks, that is where a huge band of snow could be possible with an upwards of a foot in some localized areas possible. And the last thing I want to do is I actually want to compare model runs to actually be able to determine if there's any trends that might actually happen within the storm. So this is the second latest model run that just came out, and I'm actually going to take it all the way down to the latest run here, the actual latest to where the new model run can actually go the furthest out to, which just so happens to be this time frame. So I want you guys to kind of take a look at the snowfall within this, and we're going to compare it to the latest model run, which is showing this. And you can kind of see a bit more of a northeasterly trend, which kind of makes sense, especially since most of the moisture is going to kind of seep up further and further. But the one thing that I do want to mention here is that areas along the southern portions of this event here, especially along the edges here, closest to the coastline, is starting to get less and less amount of precipitation, and expect that to continue to be the case as this continues to get closer and closer to the event, which will occur from Saturday all the way over into Monday. Now, one last thing I do want to point out for you all is that there already have been some winter storm watches and warnings that have been issued. So the winter storm warnings are in the pink polygons and the watches are in the blue polygons. There's even one up here in Maine. So guys, watch out for that if you guys live within that general vicinity, as there could potentially be some hazardous winter weather that could move on through your general area. Now, our give it to me straight question of the day is, we had a winter storm that we did not cover on this channel about a week ago. And what the question here for you all is, how many inches of snow did I get from that storm? I'll give you a hint. I live in southern portions of Pennsylvania, but I won't tell you where specifically, so you have to try and guess as to how much snow I got that day. But otherwise, that's going to be it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, turn on notifications, share this with friends and family and on social media. Also follow me on social media, link will be in the description down below, and I will catch you guys whenever the next video comes out, which is basically whenever I have enough time to upload it, because I'm going to be pretty busy this weekend with Martin Luther King Jr. weekend being very popular at the ski resort. So who knows? We'll see how it all plays out. But thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I will catch you guys next time. Peace out.